I've hired more than 30 sales reps in my time as an entrepreneur, and I've made more than $25 million with high ticket sales teams. What I'm going to do in this video is walk you through my step-by-step process for finding, hiring, managing, paying, incentivizing, ramping, onboarding, and I'm going to give you the whole picture on how to hire sales reps. Now, this could be for a service-based business like a agency or a recruiting business. This could be for a coaching or consulting business or an info business. The first and most important thing to hiring sales reps is understanding incentives. And really, incentives come down to price, because the way that you want to pay sales reps for these sorts of roles is percentage commission. And if you're not in a position where you're charging a high ticket price, i.e. thousands of dollars a month, or tens of thousands of dollars for a specific course or product, then you're not going to get good reps. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is how to hire them. We're going to go through sort of A to Z, everything from the job post, where to post a job post, the interview process. But none of this really matters if your business doesn't support them, because when it comes to the performance of a sales rep, it really comes down to one of two things. It's either the rep, number one is the rep, and number two is the environment. And the environment is basically your company. And so, you can have the best hands down sales talent in the world, but if your company is a crappy environment, meaning you're not charging enough, clients aren't getting good results, and the product sucks, and like the operations is a mess, like a rep can only perform as well as the environment they're put in. And I would rather have a insanely good company environment and just average reps than incredible, insane reps and a average company environment. The environment matters way more than the rep. And so if your reps aren't closing and getting deals, usually it's not always because they're not good. Sometimes it's because the company environment doesn't suit them and isn't optimal for performance. And if you don't believe me, just look at your own life and how much your environment affects your position, right? If you were, if you're living at home and you live in a messy, untidy, chaotic, loud, slow Wi-Fi, Soviet Union-esque building, you're probably not going to be very productive. But if you put yourself in a nice, tidy, clean, straightforward, efficient environment, you're going to actually get the job done. So environment's huge. Just remember that, because you can hire as many reps as you want, but if your company sucks, then it's all bad. So the first place that we have to start is obviously surface area. So surface area is a term in mathematics used to denote the amount of the length of a surface. Okay, and you might be wondering, well, what the hell? How does that have anything to do with it? Well, when we increase our surface area, what that basically means is we are increasing the amount of the likelihood that someone comes into contact with us. Okay, and so the key to hiring, and the real key to successful rep hiring, is talking to as many people as humanly possible. And I'm talking, you want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And the only way that you get more applicants is by increasing your surface area. And the way you increase your surface area is by talking to more people and reaching out to more people. And so there's a few things that we can do to find sales reps, okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. So the first thing is posts on social media, okay? Second thing is recruiters / hirers, we'll call them. Definitely, let's just call them recruiters. You've got lists, and you've got socials, you've got friends, and that's kind of it. So the one that I would recommend that you avoid at the beginning is, I would recommend you avoid recruiters, because there's going to be people out there that say like, oh, I'll place a sales rep for you, and it's going to cost you like somewhere between 5 to 15 grand to place the rep. I am yet to have a good experience with recruiters. I haven't used them all, okay? Most of them I haven't used. But in my experience, and the experience that I've seen from a lot of other people, the sales recruiting game is pretty sucky, okay? Now, second to this, the one that you're most likely going to use is your posts on social media. So what you want to do is you want to go to places like Facebook, you can go to school groups, you can go to Reddit communities, you can go to Discord communities. You need to find the little pockets of the internet where online remote high ticket sales reps congregate, and they do congregate. There's Facebook groups, there's going to be WhatsApp groups, you're going to have all sorts of stuff. And what you can also do is, if you know a high ticket closer, or someone that's already in a job closing, then what you can do is you can ask them, do you know anyone? And then this is sort of where the friends thing comes in. So whenever I'm looking to make a important hire, what I will do is I will go on my WhatsApp, and I've got maybe 600 contacts on my WhatsApp that are relevant to my industry and my business. And what I will do is I will just message every single one and say, do you happen to know a high ticket sales rep, that would do that? And the key, if you want to ask friends, is to double down on the network. And so what this means is you ask your friends, you say, hello, do you know anyone who might be a good high ticket sales rep? Or if you don't, is there anyone in your network who might know someone? And then what this does is it increases your surface area by literally like 50% just by asking the extra question, which is a pretty cool thing to do. The other option you have is using email lists. I'm going to put down here clients as well. But the other option we have is using email lists or using our socials. So if you have got an audience or you've got a sizable email list, honestly, that can get the job done pretty well. And then the other thing is clients. So if you have any clients that you think could be potential sales reps, then that works really well. Now, there's kind of a question here as to what sort of rep do you want, because really there's going to be two types of potential rep hire. The first one is experienced, and the second one is obviously new. Now, in my experience, the only time it makes sense to hire really experienced sales reps that have got lots of training and have done lots of deals is when you have a very successful company. Because the experienced guys, these guys are expecting 15, 20, 25K a month, right? They are really it's kind of chicken and egg scenario, because the only way that you get to 8 figures, multi-8 figures, high 7 figures is by having experienced sales reps, but they will not work for you unless you're already there. And so, you can try and find experienced sales reps and trained sales reps, but the ones that are good, they're already in jobs, and they will not settle for anything less than multi-6 figures in commission. Now, they won't expect salary, but they will expect commission. And one of the first things an experienced sales rep will ask you when in the hiring process is they will say, how many people at your company are making 20K a month? Like, what's the highest, what's the highest performer getting paid in your company? And if that is anything short of what their expectation of what they could make is, then they won't join you. So this kind of leaves us with the, if you're making your first few rep hires, it kind of leaves you in the crappy camp where you're going to be hiring people who don't have much sales experience. They're still kind of new to the game. They're still maybe looking for their first closing role, or, maybe you have to train them up from scratch and give them the script and stuff. This is how I did it. So, I wasn't, when I was starting out, at the beginning, I wasn't really in a position to hire experienced talent because, my product wasn't expensive enough. We didn't have enough client results yet. I didn't have any, I was doing the sales myself. So there was no sort of, any killer closer, any real proper A player closer wouldn't come near us because we had no proof of, performance. There was no sales management systems. There was no incentives. It was a mess. It was a mess. So in the beginning, you kind of have to be a little bit messy. And so what I did is I hired people who I just thought would be good sales reps that I could train. And so, it's funny. I've got maybe 4 or 5 people on my team now. We've got 10 sales reps, and half of them, they joined us, 2-3 years ago, and they'd never sold a thing in their life. And so we trained them up from scratch where, we gave them the script. Now, there's another thing that I want to tell you about this before we move on to what to post and what to send and, stuff. If you yourself cannot close at a percentage rate that is north of 25-30%, do not hire a sales rep. Please do not. I know that doing sales calls sucks, and I know it hurts, and I know it takes a lot of your time, and it's annoying, and you just want to outsource so you can focus on the business. But until you are talented yourself, you have no right to hire talent, okay? You need to be able to close at least 25-30%, and you need to have yourself done hundreds, if not thousands of calls yourself. I did nearly 2,000 sales calls before I hired my first sales rep. And if you've just done a couple of hundred, you're not good enough to manage. Because this is the thing is when you bring a rep on, you need to be able to teach them. And you need to be able to give them a proven process, and you need to be able to give them call recordings and stuff. Because, if you're still starting out at the beginning, then you're not in a position to hire experience, which means that, the person who you're hiring or the people you're hiring, they have to be able to lean on you and your experience. If you think you're going to hire a rep who's been selling for 10 years, they've put their 10,000 hours in, they've got, multi 7 figures in commission, and you're just there with your little, $5,000 product, and you can't even close it yourself, that person will not work for you. But the person who will work for you is the person who, is still starting out, quite ambitious, quite hungry, but they need to be trained, and they need to be managed, and they need to be helped, they need to be handled, and they need to be helped. And if you can't close consistently, then you do not qualify to teach someone to close consistently. And sadly, for most of you watching this video, you're going to fall into the teaching camp. So the first few reps that I hired had never sold before. They were incredibly extroverted, charming, hungry people, which is kind of what you're looking for. And we gave them a script, and I, basically had a call with them every single day, going through the calls and, kind of doing this sales management position. And that's basically a very important thing to know. So the question then becomes okay, well, what do I need to say in the posts, or what do I email the list, or, what do I tell my clients or my friends? Well, this is pretty straightforward, and I can show you, because I've actually got it on my computer of what we're looking for. So first step, surface area, but obviously you need to know kind of what to send. So second is messaging. So basically what you want to do is you want to draft a message. Now, if you're sending messages to friends, or on WhatsApp, or you're trying to blast out just a quick message to someone to see if they know anyone, then really all we're doing is we basically say, I'm hiring, and then blank, and then what we're doing is we're putting looking for blank, blank, blank. Okay, so you state 3 things that you're looking for, adjectives to describe people. So, really it's going to be extroverts, confidence, and charm, or you can put experience maybe, right? But basically when you reach out to people, or when you send this message to social media or whatever, people need to be able to resonate with these words here. Or if I said to you, do you know, I'm looking for a sales rep, they need to be extroverted, confident, and have just a small bit of experience. Do you know anyone? When you give them a couple of adjectives, it makes categorizing people that they know way easier, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know someone like that. Yeah, I can introduce you to them. But if you just say, I'm looking for sales reps, do you know anyone? Well, that person who you're talking to might have no idea as to what would make a good rep. But when you say what you're looking for specifically, then they do. Now, third to this, we put compensation. And basically what you want to do for compensation is give a range, and really it should be 10 to 20K per month. Now, this once again comes back to your question of well, how do I know if a sales rep can make 10K, 20K a month? Well, it should be pretty straightforward, because you should only be looking to hire sales reps once you have the appointment volume to support them. So if you're trying to hire a sales rep, but you cannot fully book them, you are not ready to hire sales reps. And what I mean by this is you should be doing all the closing right now. Okay, so this is you. And your calendar should be, full. You're fully booked. And you have the capacity to book another calendar all the way out. And then you're going to hire another rep, and you guys are going to close in parallel. What you must not do is have a full calendar yourself and then try and give that full calendar to a brand new rep and just cross your fingers that it works. Because if you do this and they do not perform, your entire business fails and you will make no money. So the only time that you need to hire a rep, and the only time that it makes sense to hire a rep, is when you have figured out A, how to sell yourself, and B, how to fill your calendar, and C, you must have the option to be able to fill a new calendar at least 75% capacity in conjunction with your own. So we never just, when we onboard the first rep or a new rep, we never stop selling ourselves until we've got 2-3 reps that are consistent. Then we take ourselves off the calendar. Okay. So yeah, pretty straightforward. This is why, if you have a product that works a appointment booking system that works so you can fill their calendar, and you have a script that works as proven by yourself, now you have proof of concept, which means that a rep can actually make 6 figures with you, okay? But if you have an inconsistent appointment booking solution, if your product doesn't really work and gets lots of refund requests and you don't know how to sell yourself, I'm telling you, even if you find like Jordan Belfort or Grant Cardone or the most elite, not that they're the most elite salespeople in the world, but you get my point. Even if you find the most elite salesperson in the world, it won't work. So this all comes back to this environment thing, and you need to be ready and prepared for the rep before, it's kind of probably like finding a girlfriend. Like, let's say that you want a gorgeous 10 out of 10 supermodel, right? It's like, well, if you're not wealthy and successful and charming and funny and you've got some stuff going for you, like, they're not going to be interested in you. They're just not, right? And so, yeah, little analogy. But basically, this is how you do the hiring post, is you're looking for sales reps. This is specifically what I'm looking for, and I'm looking to compensate at this level, okay? Now, what we do in our hiring process now is we get a little bit pickier. So, we basically say provide, and then we say call recordings. We need call recordings, like experience. So, I'm now only hiring people that have closed like over $1 million in high ticket transactions in cash, okay? And I'm only interested in hiring people that can send me like 100 one-call closes with, their spreadsheets and everything. But you're probably not going to have this luxury yet, because, for you, if you're still starting out and you're still just trying to get your first rep, you can look for experience and you can demand it, and that's great. But honestly, like, once again, it comes back to these A players, these killers. Like, they will only work for you if the environment is suitable for a killer or an A player. And just having like a few calls a day and like it won't work. So that's the messaging. It really is just, I'm hiring sales reps. I'm looking for people who are extroverted, confident, and have a little experience in sales, and that's it. And then you just explain what you're going to compensate them, which will be 10 to 20k a month, and that's pretty much straightforward. And so what we're looking to do is we're looking to send this message to as many people as possible, and we're looking to just expand this surface area and do it on socials, do it on email lists, do it on YouTube community, do it on Instagram, do it on TikTok, do it on Twitter, like bang. And so what we need to do this is we need to have a Google form, because when you send this message to people, obviously you're going to have a link, and it needs to link to a Google form, okay? And the Google form is pretty straightforward, and what I will actually do is I will bring up my Google form. Obviously, here are the questions. So on the form, you ask for their name, okay, and obviously email and number, so you can contact them, right? Pretty straightforward. Now, the next thing is very important. So second thing is location. So where are you based? Because you need to think about your market, where you're booking your appointments from, what country, what time zones people are in, etc., etc. Then the next thing is like, how did you find the application? Because we want to get like a little bit of feedback from where these people have got. And then the next thing is all we do is we ask them to make a loom. So we don't have an extensive form. What we do instead is we ask them to record a loom video, and then we put all of the questions in that we would typically ask on the form instead. The reason we do this is because you can tell. Once you get, even with a little bit of experience under your belt, like you can tell within probably 3 seconds of a loom if someone's going to be good at sales or not. Because think about it, like, if this person's applying for a sales role, what we want is we want them to be like completely energetic and like they're opening the loom like, Charlie, I'm so glad to be recording this loom for you. I'm going to crush it for you. But if they open the loom and they're like, hey, so yeah, I'm just submitting this application. Like, that's how they're going to be on calls. So how they record the loom for you is how they're going to record the loom for your prospects and how they're going to show up on Zoom calls and stuff. So we need to get them to do a loom, because you're going to be doing interviews here and interviewing people, and the last thing you want is to be talking to people that don't have energy, and you could be wasting your time. So on the loom, there's quite a few questions that we ask. So current situation or current job / role. So explain where you're currently working. And then time in role and why leaving. So like, we asked them like, why, how long have you been doing the job you have now for? And, why are you thinking about leaving and moving towards, us, for example? Current income is really important to know, like how much they're making. Next thing is huge, which is can they do full time? So if they cannot do full time, you do not hire them, because it only really, like, sales is a tough game, and it only really works if someone is completely focused and completely locked in, and if sales is the only thing they do. Okay, so it needs to be that. E is time zone. So where are you actually based and where are you from? And then I'll just read the rest of these out because we're going to run out of space. The next question is, why do you feel like you would fit this company specifically? So, what we're looking for here is just a little bit of research, a little bit of understanding as to brand that you have, the products you have, the solution, the clients, etc., just to show they've actually done some diligence. Because, if someone just says, oh, I think I'd fit in because I fit in anywhere, it's like, you don't really care about this application. Next question is, do you have any relevant high ticket sales experience? So, you ask them to explain, what have you sold? How much have you sold, etc., etc. And then the next one, and this is quite a big one, and we will use this, we lean on this quite heavily, which is, have you ever invested in sales education before? The reason we ask this question in the form is because how serious someone is about their profession or their career, a pretty good indicator of that is if they're willing to actually make financial investments in themselves. And so we ask for that, and then we will specifically ask them, like, who have you learned from and what did you learn from it? Because not all sales trainers online are born equally, right? Some of them suck. So we know the ones that suck. And if someone says that they've bought this person's training, then they probably suck because the training sucks. And people are only as good as their mentor or their trainer, right? So, if they invested in like a sucky one, then we don't hire them. The next question is, and this is specific to our market. So we say, do you have any relevant coaching, consulting, or agency market experience? So you would obviously insert your niche or who you serve here. And then we put in brackets after this question, this is not essential, but it's good to know. And this is because you don't want to discourage them from booking because they haven't got experience specifically in your market. But this is just a good way to gauge, does this person understand the language, the lingo? It's not a deal breaker, but it's going to help them. And then the next question, the last question, and this is really, this is probably one of the most important questions on there, is what are you looking to earn from this role per month to see if we align? Because, you should have a rough, well, you might not, but you will after this video, right? You'll have a rough idea as to what commission you're going to pay reps and like how much money they can make and stuff like that. And the biggest cause or leading reason as to why reps will leave and quit and end their contract with you early is because what they're making after a few months is not in alignment with what they thought they would be making. And so if this person has been sold the dream by one of these high ticket remote closer academies and they're like, I want to make 25k a month in the next 3 months, it's very unlikely that your business is going to be able to support that level of desire. And so you just kind of want to know. And then if you think they're a fit and you interview them, you just need to set their expectations. Like, hey man, look, I'm going to give you, 100 calls a month, and my show rate is 60%, so you're going to be conducting 60%, and my close rate's 30%, so maybe you can convert it 20%, and this is how much we charge, and this is the commission, so you're probably going to make more like 12k a month, which is half of what you said you want to. How do you feel about that? And then that person will tell you like, oh well, man, look, the job I'm in right now pays me like 25, so it's not a fit, whatever. And then the last question on the form, which is not relevant to the Loom, but the last question on the form is who, if anyone, referred you to this form, okay? Pretty straightforward. And that Loom thing is all one question on the form. So I'll just go back through it. Current role, how long have you been in the role? Why are you looking to leave? Current income, full-time, can you take calls full-time? Time zone, why do you feel like you'd fit this company specifically? Relevant high-ticket sales experience. Have you ever invested in sales education before? Do you have any relevant market experience? And what are you looking to earn per month? All of that is in one question box, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's really, really important that you ask them all, and it's important that you get them to just send a Loom. And what we're looking for here, really, when it comes to, and I'll just bring myself back to the screen here. What we're looking for here is, on the Loom, is you're really looking for a couple of things. Okay, you're looking for 1, energy on the loom. You're looking for 2, charisma. You're looking for 3, effort. And you're looking for 4, conciseness. Okay, so really, if you ask yourself, like, and also 5, conviction. Okay, if you ask yourself, what are the things that you want a sales rep to have on a call with a prospect? It's, you want them to have energy. You know, you want them to sort of be pumped up, to have, like, you know, something about them, to have like a nice air of enthusiasm. You want them to have charisma, which means that they're somewhat charming, or, you know, they make you feel good just by watching the loom. You sort of leave the loom thinking, damn, I like that. I like that person. Like, likability. Effort. So, like, have they actually made an effort with this loom? Like, you know, we've had this before where people just record like selfie videos in like dungeons or some shit like that, you know. Like, have they actually showed up? Are they well presented? Have they got like a decent microphone? Is their webcam like in 144p? You know, have they made an effort to make sure they're presentable? And have they actually done research? And like, the best people who do this is they copy and paste the questions. They get like a Google Doc, and then they'll like explain each question. And it's like, you can just see if someone's put effort in, or if someone's just done the application in like 2 minutes, right? Like, you know, a big indicator of this is if they're reading the questions out as they record the loom. They've got the Google form open, and now like they haven't really prepared any answers, if that makes sense. The next one is conciseness. So, you know, you don't want, like, the loom shouldn't really be any more than like 5-10 minutes long. You don't want someone that records like a 45-minute loom, because you might think that, oh, well, that indicates they've put a lot of effort in, but usually it's just because they ramble and they're not concise. And if someone's a rambler and they just talk and talk, and I don't know, I know I'm a bit of a hypocrite on this, right? You can forgive me. But, you know, if this person just talks and talks and talks and talks, that's how they're going to treat prospects on Zoom. And we all know that in the sales scenario, the less you say, the better. The more concise, the fewer words you say, the more effect you have, right? And then last but not least is conviction. And this is basically just, you know, we can also call this confidence. But this is kind of just like, do you leave the loom with this feeling like, oh, this person's going to crush? Because, you know, what they need to do really on this loom is essentially sell you on themselves and their abilities. And, you know, the best reps I've ever hired from this loom process are the reps that start the video and they say, hey, Charlie, how's it going? Look, first of all, I want you to say that I am so grateful that you're taking the time to review this application, and I have so much confidence this is the perfect fit. I will not sleep until I get your results. I'm going to crush it for you. I'm so excited to get started. Let me explain these questions. Like, if someone has that, if they just have, oh, sorry, I'm just kicking my bin around over there. I'm just going to move it out of the way. Don't know if you can hear that or not. Just as like it's on the floor, keeps dragging across. Anyway, if someone has that like raw conviction, that confidence, this is kind of like the main thing, because everything else, like, because it kind of comes into energy and charisma, right? But even I will take, if someone has no market experience and they have no high ticket experience whatsoever, like the conviction, the confidence thing, you cannot train. And so, you know, the last thing you want is to open the loom and, you know, for someone to be like, hey, Charlie, so welcome to my loom video. And, you know, you want them to have this just, there's something about them. It's like, you know, my sales manager, Branka, calls this, like, they've got the dog in them. They've got this, like, something about them, right? So really the way that you judge the looms and the way that you judge whether or not you should interview someone, which is the next step we'll talk about in a second, is basically how you feel and how much confidence you have in them as a result of watching the loom. Because, you know, sales, like we know, is a transfer of emotion. And if you feel a positive emotion, or you feel, you know, positively emotionally drawn to this person, then you should interview them, because the energy that you got from them on the loom and the feeling you got of them on the loom is the energy they're going to give to your prospect. And really, like, first principle, it really is just a transfer of emotion. Everything else can be trained. Now, what you want to have as a rule of thumb is before you start, because the next stage is interviews, and I'm just going to move these up here. Okay. So the next stage is interviews. And basically what you want to do here is, before you do any interviews or before, you know, you make any decisions, is you really want to try and get like 30 to 100 forms. Okay. if anything, I'm even going to say like 50 to 100, because what's going to happen with these looms is most of them are going to suck. But if you don't know what good looks like, then you don't have any idea as to, you know, what's good and what's bad. So the way I'm going to explain this is pretty straightforward. The more people you talk to, the higher likelihood or the higher chance you have of finding someone that's good. And that's pretty straightforward, right? But the only way that you know what bad looks like is when you know what good looks like. And so if you get 15 Google forms and they all suck, then what you're going to do is you're going to pick the best loom or the best form from that pool of 15. But the thing is that just because someone sucks less than everybody else doesn't mean they're good. And so, you know, when we make a hire, we will literally not, like, we know what we're looking for, right? But if you haven't done this many times before, like, you can fall into a real trap, because let's say that you watch 15 looms and the first 14 are kind of just subpar, and then the 15th is just like okay. Like, let's say the first 14 are dreadful, like they're just really bad, and then the 15th is like kind of all right. Like, you will think that the 15th person is like this gift sent from God. It's like, oh my God, this person's amazing, but they're only amazing in contrast to the people that you've seen before. So the biggest hiring mistake and the most dangerous hiring mistake is not having enough contrast and not having enough comparison or enough units of comparison to what's good and what's bad. And basically, the more looms that you get and the more looms that you watch, the higher the likelihood you see someone that's actually talented and actually good. And then you can be like, oh, damn. Like, you watch the first 14, they all suck. You watch the 15th, they're all right, but you think they're amazing because, you know, they don't suck. But then you watch the 16th and that person could be like 5 times better, you know, than the number 15. So yeah, that's pretty important. We want at least 50 to 100 of these of these Google forms before we make any sort of interview approaches. And really, you know, we want to try and have, like, I would honestly make the argument you want to have like 10 to 30 interviews to hire a rep. It's the same premise, right? Because, you know, it's you know, if you have 50 forms, 100 forms, you know, you're probably only going to get like 20% of them are going to be any good. So yeah, we really want to have like 10 to 20 interviews, 30 interviews. 30 is a little extreme, but you need at least 10 interviews before you make a hiring decision, full stop. A lot of people, what they will do when they're hiring reps is they're so eager and desperate and they're in so much pain to just outsource this sales thing that they interview like 3 people and then they just pick the best of the 3. And that doesn't make any sense because, you know, most people suck. And so you want to do at least 10 because the chances of at least one of them being good is acceptable. Right. So the interview process is pretty straightforward. And I'm just going to pull it up on my screen here because we have our internal interviewing process that I'm going to base this around and sort of walk you through, if that makes sense. So a couple of points that you're looking for, okay? You can write these down on your notepad. So first of all, before the call, if they have any past experience and they've provided evidence or anything like that, you want to do a little bit of diligence on them. So, you know, if they say where they've worked, then, you know, call up that business and, you know, actually don't do that if they still have the job. Do not do that because they might, the business might not know that they're leaving yet. But, like, you know, if they sent you call recordings, if they say they've worked somewhere, just do a little bit of research, do a little bit of homework. The next thing is, on this interview, one of the main things that you're looking to do, and we have this on our internal sales management notes here, is you need to discover their motivation. So why do they want to make money? Why do they want to be a high ticket sales rep? Why do they want to make the money they want to make? This could be financial freedom. It could be like taking care of their family. It could be they want to travel. It could just be they have a really deep interest in the industry. They maybe want to buy like a car or something. In my experience, like, the reps that want freedom are incredibly dangerous to hire. Like the reps this sort of remote closer archetype, like, you know, the people that are like, yeah, so like, you know, I'm in high ticket sales because I want to be able to make money online. I want to be able to be in like Brazil one day and then Buenos Aires the next day. And then I want to be in like Mexico. And now I want to be in like South America. Like, people, the reps that want to constantly move around are terrible. Like, they suck. They really do. Because, you know, think about yourself and your work. When have you ever been productive abroad? It's very hard, right? So you want to watch out for that motivation, and you really do not want to hire anyone that wants to move around and travel around. The rest of the motivations are fine, but you kind of need to get to the bottom of them. few more things. So very important. So you're going to ask them questions and you're going to make statements. And one thing that you're looking for in this interview is, and you're not asking this as a question, it's just something that you're doing as an interviewee, is can they listen to you and answer your questions succinctly, and do they get off track easily? So, can they hold like a concise, focused conversation or not? And what this means is if you ask them a question, and the first, I'll walk you through what questions to ask in just a second here, but if you ask them a question on the interview, do they, it's like kind of like bowling, like how you have the barriers up, like do they stay within the lines of the question, or do they go off on like a 20-minute rampage about something completely irrelevant? And then like, if the biggest red flag in an interview is when a person will ask, sorry, what was the question? So they go off on this weird tangent and then they have to come back and ask you what the question was. That if they do that on the interview, they're going to do it on sales calls, which means that like they're going to end up over talking, they're going to overshare, they're not going to keep a concise line of questioning. Nightmare. Next thing is, are they interested in the nuances of the calls and the industry? So are they interested in details? Do they ask lots of questions about the industry, or do they just want to understand the process at like a really surface level? Big important thing is you want detail. Next thing, really important, is how coachable are they? So, you want to get an indication of like, do they repeatedly tell you they're open to coaching? Because this is the thing, is like a lot of these new reps, a lot of these fresh reps that have been through like a sales trainer or something, they think they're good, but they're really not. And, a lot of them think they don't need any more coaching because they think education is this weird one-time affair. The thing is like you have a proven process for your sales, like conversion rate, and you know what works and you know your industry and you've built a process that works. And the only thing that would stop the rep from not succeeding is if they failed to follow the process. And so what we're looking to do on these interviews is get an indication of, is this person coachable? Are they going to listen to feedback? Are they willing to change the way they sell to fit the market and the product, right? This next thing says, this is what our sales manager's made. Ask questions about their perspective on a topic or attribute, and then ask for an example of how they've demonstrated that in the past. What do they say and what do they do? Do they actually match? So anytime that you ask someone for something about themselves, you need to ask them, like, give me an example. So, if you say like, are you like, do you love sales? It's like, they'll say, yeah, I love sales. It's my favorite thing. It's like, okay, well, like what's something that you've done in your life to show that you love it? And, if someone says, well, when I was like, the reason I love sales is because my dad worked in sales. And, when I was 10, like, he would take me to like some of his clients' houses, and like I would sit down and watch the close. And my favorite movie of all time is Wolf of Wall Street, and like I've even got pictures of like the best salespeople in the world on my bedroom wall. Like, obviously it's not going to get that far, right? But you need to look like, do their actions match their words, or are they just saying these things because they think they should, which is almost always what happens. So you need to be careful about that. And then the last thing you're looking for is do they turn up presentable and well dressed? Are they taking the interview on their iPhone and it's all shaky? If they put on a shirt or a collared shirt or something, semi-formal, is their background tidy? Another thing that I like to do is at some point throughout the interview, I'll try and ask them to share their screen, because what that will do is like, you can tell a lot about someone from the state of their desktop, right? And so like, do they have like a million tabs open? Is everything chaotic and messy? Like, if it is, that it's not going to be a deal breaker. It's not going to be the end of the world. But if they're not organized in their own personal digital environment, then organizing like 100 calls a month and CRMs and follow-ups, like, there needs a little work. So let me explain a few questions that I would ask on this. So obviously, from the interview perspective, we have the small talk to begin with, right? Pretty straightforward. I'm just going to make myself bigger here. So we start with the small talk, okay? And we're going to get into that. Like, where are you from? Like, how are you doing? Where are you calling from? All right, let's jump in and get started. And then what we do is the first question we ask is we say, okay, Mr. Charlie or Mr. Sales Rep, what I'd like you to do is basically tell me your life story from start to finish, please. And this throws them into a pit of chaos because what this does is, the reason you ask this question is because it immediately shows you how like, can they think on the spot in terms of like, you know, can they like, do they panic or whatever? But it shows you how they organize their thinking. And it's a really good way to understand how quick and sharp and smart someone is if you ask them that question and they panic and they're like, well, but if they say, really good question, yeah, okay, no worries. And then they bang, they're straight into it. Or like, and then what you're looking for is, how long does it take them to answer the question? Because this is one of these open-ended questions that someone could literally spend the entire interview answering. And if they do that, then they're not going to be a good sales rep. But you know, if they get it done in like 3 minutes, like, okay, well, and you can sort of see them building these bullet points and this mind map, and then they're like, okay, I got it. And then they deliver it and they've got confidence. And the people that really crush, they start linking things back to why it would make them good for the role. So one of the best reps we ever hired, like he answered this question, and he talked about how, like, you know, he went to university and he studied architecture and stuff like that. And he said, like, yeah, well, I did architecture. And, you know, one of the things that I found was really good about architecture is it taught me how to really think about design, and it taught me how to be creative. And I think that's something that I really carry through into my sales experience and my sales calls, because, you know, it allows me to have this very unique perspective about creativity and, you know, getting creative with scripts and stuff. And I was like, that's a salesperson right there, because, you know, it's a little nuanced, but pretty good to know. So you start with the story question, and either this will throw them into a pit of chaos, or they'll handle it well and they'll crush. And so next questions, I'm just going to read these out for you so you can answer them. So then we're basically saying, like, can you share with me what motivated you to apply to work for us? Can you tell me about your current job responsibilities and what they include? What interests you in potentially doing a different line of work or switching companies that you sell for? What are your interests in our industry specifically? So why are you interested in the industry, like this space that I'm working in? Like, what do you know about it? Have you done some research on it, etc., etc.? And a lot of them, they won't have any experience or interest in the industry, or at least, like, you know, they won't know much about it. And if they bullshit, then we're calling them out. But what we're looking for here is maybe some honesty. It's like, hey, honestly, man, like, you know, I'll be completely honest with you. I've never worked in this space before. I don't know much about it. I can see how I could develop an interest for it, but I'll be completely honest, I don't really know much about it. That's fine. You know, we're not worried about that. And then this is a pretty good one. This question here is, can you give me an example of one of the most challenging problems that you've had to face in your current job, and how you've had to solve it? It's another one of these questions that's very open-ended and puts them under this immediate pressure. Okay. And then I'm going to rattle these off. How much, if any, of experience have you had in sales before? And how did the process in selling that work? Do you have a script you followed? What were your results like in that system? What was the product, and who was your ideal customer for it? How were the leads generated? How do you describe your listening skills? Can you give me an example of when you use your listening skills to resolve a difficult situation in your role? How comfortable are you working in a commission-only position? It's very important because we're going to be paying them commission. Have you ever worked in a commission-only position in the past? Have you considered starting your own business before? Because if they have, then it's not a fit, because they're just going to keep thinking about that. And have you got any side gigs on right now? So can you give this your full-time, you know, focus? And what sales books and training programs have you been through? And I like this question. So the last question is, what's one thing that you believe to be true that everybody else would disagree with you on? Because this just is like a good indicator of their ability to think critically, right? Some pretty hard-hitting questions in there. Now, once you've asked them all of those questions, all you're really doing here next is just describing the company. So, you know, basically you talk about, like, well, you know your company, right? So you're just going to give them a brief sort of, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 minute pitch and explanation as to what the company is, who you serve, who you help, what the offer is, the company history, what you want to do in the future, etc., etc. And then all you do is you then ask them what questions they have. Now, a lot of them are going to have questions about how the company works. A lot of them are going to have questions about the compensation, but the compensation comes last once they fully understand the company, okay? So now, that's basically the interview process. I'm going to talk to you about the compensation briefly here. Actually, no, we'll do this in a second, because you can explain the compensation once you understand it. So yeah, pretty simple. You'll have the compensation discussion, you'll have the question discussion, and then once you finish the interview, you want to set a deadline. So what you're going to do is you're going to say to them, okay, well, I'm interviewing, you know, 7 more people this week or 10 more people this week, and I'm looking to make this hire specifically on this date. And you want to give them, oh, you can't see my writing on. Let's move this down here. So yeah, you want to tell them you're going to look to hire on a specific date. or a specific time, because otherwise like they might get weird and freaky and start looking for other jobs, and then you've lost them. So you give them a specific date and you clear all your interviews, and you'd never make a hire until you finish the interviews. So finish all of them that you've got on the calendar. And that's basically that, okay? Now, once you've done the interviews, the fifth stage is obviously the decision, right? So, you should have at least 10 candidates that you've interviewed, and you should have all the calls recorded in a spreadsheet with all the questions answered. Like, you need to rewatch the recordings, like who did you get a vibe for, who did you get a feel for, and then you make your decision on the date. So the next thing is obviously onboarding, and then we're going to talk about incentives. Decision. So you round up all the interviewees, you listen to all of the call recordings, because you should record the interviews, and you're going to have, if you've done at least 10, you're going to have like 1 or 2 people where you're like, okay, yeah, you're not bad. You're not bad. I'll hire you. And this means we need to onboard them. So onboarding is very straightforward. Basically, you need to set them up with a company email. Pretty simple. And then really second to that is just training. So what you want to do is there's 3 things that you need to do to give them training properly. So you need to give them the script. Okay. You need to give them call recordings, and you need to give them a loom that explains the script. If that makes sense. And really, like, you need to just say to them, look, like, I've got 51 call closes. Like, I've got, this is the script that I use that I've, have been working on, that works consistently. And then you just need to send them a loom. And then basically, like, the sales process is really broken down into the discovery, the pitch, and the objections. Okay. And so, what we're looking to do is we're looking to have a loom on how the discovery works and all the intricacies of the discovery. We're looking to have a loom on the pitch and how that works, the intricacies, and then the same thing with objection handling. And, this is the thing. If you don't know how to do these, then the rep isn't going to perform. Because even if the rep is good and has some experience, like, you have more experience and you have all the tools they need. And if you don't, they're not going to close properly. Okay. So, next to this, that's pretty much it, to be honest. You need to get them on the calendar. But what I would do is you really want them to do training for 1 to 2 weeks before you bring them on the calendar. And when you bring them on a calendar is you start them at the beginning on a half cal. And what this means is you start them on a half calendar. So you don't just bring them on and start feeding them like 8 calls a day immediately. You bring them on and give them like 3-4 calls a day. And your objective here is to try and have them to conduct like 2 to 3 calls a day for the first week. Okay. So really, like, you really want them to get like 15 to like maybe like 20 calls max. But honestly, like, you want to try and get them to do like 10 to 15 calls in the first week. And what you're going to do is you're going to listen to all of these calls, and you're going to make a decision on whether to keep them. Now, in the first month, we're not concerned about their closing. We're not concerned about their close rate. We're not concerned about whether they're collecting cash. We're not concerned about if they're getting deals over the line at all. None of that matters at all in the first month. All we're looking to do in these first couple of weeks, the first 10, 20, 30 calls, is are they following the process? And are they coachable? I don't care if we hire a rep and they don't close in the first couple of weeks. We don't worry. We're not worried about that at all. All we're worried about is when we're listening to the calls that they've conducted, is like, are they following the process, or are they trying to do it their own way? Because if you think about it critically, it's really simple. Like, if you have a process that works and converts, that converts, and you have a script that works, that you follow that works, in theory, all the rep has to do is follow it. Okay? Now, yeah, there's some intricacies around objection handling and training and stuff, but if they know how to do this and they have the humility to follow it and try, that's it. So first week, you will know if they're following the process or not. And a week in, if they're not listening at all, if it's apparent they haven't paid attention to the script, if it's apparent they haven't watched the looms, like, you want someone that comes in and watches your looms and the call recordings like 100 times over. If they haven't watched the call recordings and that it's clear their market understanding hasn't improved, then we have to fire them and do the interviewing process again and find somebody else. Now, one thing that you can do when you hire people, and we will do this quite a lot after the interview stage, is we'll actually bring on 2 reps, and what we'll do is we'll put them both on half calendars, and we'll make a decision after 2 weeks to cut one. And the one that gets cut is the one that's following the process the least, if that makes sense. This way, you kind of guarantee that the hire is actually going to be good and happens, because you'd be surprised how many people you bring on thinking they're going to crush, only to find out they can't even follow a script, right? Eventually, you'll get good at this to the point where you can just hire someone and they'll just crush immediately because you've done it so much. But that happens only once you've hired like 10, 15 sales reps. So in the beginning, maybe bring on 2 people at once, give them half calendars. Maybe they only need to conduct like 5, 6, 7 calls in the first week for you to know if they're going to work out or not, right? So that's the onboarding. It's really simple, very straightforward. And we leave them on like the half calendar, and then only once they get their first deal or couple of deals in, and once their process is like really dialed in, then we bring them into the full calendar. Then we start spending more money to fill their calendars, okay? And then eventually you can offboard yourself. Now, the next thing is incentives, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about. Now, there's tons of stuff that I could talk about here in terms of sales management, in terms of using leaderboards, bonuses. There's a lot to get into, but I want this to be just a more simple guide for hiring a rep, because you only need to really concern yourself with sales management and sales management systems and tracking systems and all this stuff once you've got 4 or 5 reps. Then you actually got a team. If you've got 1 or 2 guys, or you're looking to hire another person and you haven't really got a team yet, management isn't that necessary, and management becomes a necessity when you have 5, 6 reps, right? So incentives, how does this work? How do we pay them? Well, obviously we pay them commission only. Never pay them a salary or a base, okay? Because if you pay them a salary or a base, you're just going to create comfort. And anyone that doesn't, I can tell you this, killers, A-player sales reps, they want to work on commission only. If someone comes in and says they want a salary, that is the biggest red flag ever. Because think about it, it's a statement of doubt. If someone's like, yeah, I want I'm not going to work for commission only, I want a salary. What they've just communicated to you non-verbally or indirectly is, I don't really have any confidence in my ability to make money closing, so I'm just going to ask you for a salary. So commission only. Now, what we do is we start every rep that comes on board at 10% commission of cash collected, okay? And what this means, let's say that our program is, let's say that we sell a $20,000 thing, okay? And let's say that, we do a 10-month payment plan, which means that, people pay $2,000 a month. Then what will happen is the rep will get 10% of this for every month, as long as the cash collects. It's really important that you only pay them on cash collection, because if they sell a payment plan or a split pay and you pay them commission on money that hasn't collected yet, you're in dark, deep trouble, okay? So cash collected. Now, one thing that we do is for every 1 year that a rep stays with us, we increase their commission by 1%, and we cap this out at 15%. So I've got a rep, I started my company 4 years ago, and I've got a rep that's been with me basically 3 years, and that person is now on 14% commission, okay? But a new rep will come in and be on 10%. And so what we're looking to do is, it's a retention strategy. We're looking to basically, keep them on board. And for every year of loyal service, we increase by 1%. Now, 15% is nuts. It's insane. But the reason that we do this, and the reason that we incentivize them and increase it over time, is purely because, if I've trained someone for 2-3 years, I want to keep them. Because I'd rather have someone who has 3 years of experience in the company, in the industry, in the culture, with the calls, with the pipeline, with the account management, with the client results. That person, I'd rather have every rep at 15% if they've been with us for 3 years than 10%, okay? And so that's pretty simple. That's how you commission them, and that's how you pay them out. Now, if you aren't charging much money, this is why you have to charge high ticket prices. And this is why sales reps only really work in this high ticket space, at least, from a high ticket perspective, because if you're charging $2,000 for your course and you try and hire a sales rep, they're only going to get $200 a sale. And, that means that they're going to need even if they make 10 sales a month, that's only $2,000, right? So, even if they make 20 sales a month, that's $4,000. It's not really much. It's not really enough to motivate and incentivize them, okay? So there's more leverage. If you want them to get paid more, increase your price, not your conversion rates, not your commission rates. That's how you pay them. Now, what we will also do is we will bonus them. Bonus on UCC. So UCC stands for upfront cash collected. Okay. So what you want to do is basically bonus, minimum standard, it's kind of the same thing. Well, it's not actually. We basically want to manage them and incentivize them with the carrot and the stick. And I'll explain the carrot first. So the carrot is basically, if they hit a certain amount of cash, then they will receive a bonus. So for our team, if a sales rep goes above $90,000 in cash in a month, then they can receive a bonus of up to $7,500. The caveat is they have to be the highest performing sales rep in that month. So they have to outcompete everybody else. So you might want to do this where if they collect you should know this from your numbers. So you should know how much cash you've been collecting each month. And you want to just put it slightly above that. And if they collect that, then you can come up with a appropriate, bonus. It could be 5% of the cash collected. It could be 10% of the cash collected. But this is only on upfront cash collection. Now, the thing that is usually way more motivating and the thing that you must have for your reps is a minimum standard. It is huge. So what you do is really there's 3 things that you can measure sales reps on, right? Let me just move this up here. Okay, you can measure them on units, you can measure them on cash, and you can measure them on conversion rate. And you might be thinking like, okay, well, which one's the most important thing? A lot of people think that conversion rate is the most important. A lot of people think units most important. A lot of people think cash is the most important. The truth is that all 3 of them are weighted equally. So what we have in our company is we mandate a minimum of every single month. The rep has to get 12 units. They have to get 45K in cash, upfront cash collected, and they have to convert it 15%. If a rep does not hit this, then they enter the danger zone for next month. So the way that this works is basically, let's say that it's January, and let's say in January they get 10 units, they get 45K cash, but they get a 10% conversion rate. Now they are, they messed up here and they messed up here. So what that means is for February, if they do not hit the minimum standard, then they're fired. And this sounds brutal, but it works. So what this does is if you try and incentivize only on units, then you get no cash. If you try and incentivize on cash, then you get no units. And if you try and incentivize purely on sales conversion rate, then the reps start getting weird. They start overqualifying. They start taking less calls because they want to conserve their energy. You need to have a minimum standard on all 3 of these things. And, so basically what this does is it puts the reps under this constant pressure to perform. And that's kind of what you want. And then you also have the bonuses so that they're motivated to push and push and push. But I've engineered my sales management incentives and minimums and standards to basically be that if every rep does this, then I get a 2 to 2.5 to 3x return on investment on them. And every single rep you have should essentially be a money doubling or money tripling machine. Which is where, for my reps, for example, for me to fill their calendars, it costs me about $30,000 a month. Okay. No, it's more than that actually. It's like $35,000 to $37,000 a month. But every rep that I have, after I've collected lifetime value revenue from all my customers, I will make about 100 grand back. So, I have a 2.2 to 2.3x return on every single sales rep for as long as they hit these minimum standards. And that's kind of how you want to engineer your sales team and your sales management expectations is there needs to be at least a 2x return because that allows you to scale it, a 40 to 50% profit margin. And, right now we're at 8 figures, basically like 800K, 900K, $1 million a month with, 8 to 9 to 10 reps at any given time. And, we can spend, 300K on ads and we might make 600K back from those ads and another 200K from organic appointments. So yeah, that's how you need to pay them basically. And that's kind of like in a nutshell, how to hire sales reps. It's a difficult thing, but once you've done it, once you find one, it's finding that one person that makes a difference. And for me, it took me like 5-6 hires before I found someone that was actually competent and capable. So don't rush it. Do not think that do not try and get off the calls yourself. Do not try and outsource sales as this thing. Just close alongside them until they're closing consistently. Bring in a second rep to replace you once they're closing consistently. Get yourself off the calendar. It's going to take you, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe even a year to find someone that's good. But once you find that first rep, now you know what to look for. And now you've got more call recordings. You've got more confidence. It's just about that first domino. So that's basically how to hire sales reps. I hope you found it helpful. If you need help getting clients, there's a link in the description you can click. It's a funnel. It's a sales page. It's my client acquisition program that teaches stuff like this in way more detail. I don't care if you check it out or not, but it might help you. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.